Professor.
So there are
to start master's level course in energy education within the Institute of Engineering, and for that there must be one research center for energy to be established within the Institute of Engineering, and the government, with the government support, we established Center for Energy Studies. Then from 2001 we have started master's level in renewable energy education. The program is running very very smoothly, and one of the very much appreciated by the students and also by academicians and by the stakeholders. So our graduates are working in the field of private sector, NGO sector, government sector. Then that was purely technical courses, renewable energy. In 2011, we felt that there must be some kind of planning in energy needed, planning level. So 2011, we started another master's course, Energy Systems Planning and Management. So only 2 years back, so energy efficiency become a very hot topic in the country, also in the world. That's why we have developed another master's course. It's called Energy Efficient Buildings, Masters in Energy Efficient Building. And there is also, not as a technical, but it's a mixed one, technical and social and economic course. It is Energy for Sustainable and Social Development. You see our many students from that Energy for Sustainable and Social Development. Those courses are running within the Institute of Engineering directly to energy, and also there is a power system and hydropower engineering. Last year we started. So, and besides this master's course, the students in undergraduate, they are also very interested to take energy subject. They are, in electives, they take energy subject courses, and also they do their project work, thesis work in energy efficiency. Our students are very much working with the NEEP, Nepal Energy Efficiency Program, GIS program. After their graduation, they also go as an intern to the NEEP program, and very much doing well. So, besides, there is one open elective course, energy conservation and efficiency, efficient as energy conservation. I think that is open course for all master's program. Many students from other departments also, they take that course. So energy efficiency become a very hot topic within our institute. At the same time, we have very good contact with the industries. Last year we signed MOU with one of the transformer producing company, Nepal, NIC, it is Nepal Electric company, NIC. And also with cement industries, we have very good contact. And our student goes to the industries for 6 months practicum, as well as an industrial attachment as an intern. So we have very good contact with all the stakeholders, namely with the industries and also government institutions. So we are very much satisfied, but we have yet to do many things in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bhattacharya. It was very interesting to see how strongly the university adapted to new demands and also to the planning needs of the country. You also touched about touched on the relationship with industry, saying there's a 6 months practical training. We may be coming back later on the question whether industry can have a more prominent role in the issue of how these courses develop and how the training develops. I also realize there is maybe a kind of a reputational problem because academia and what is called mid-level management don't seem to go together always so well. But that's also maybe an issue which we might take up. I would call now on the statement from Dr. Kulbaharul Vasnet. He is actually the vice president, the vice chairperson of the Council for Technical Education and Vocational Training, CTET, something I will never be able to pronounce correctly. In a year I'm trying CVTV, I always get it somehow wrong.
It's for technical education and vocational.
I will have to say it in the long version.
Yeah.
Of the Council. You have a PhD in the impact of technical education and the vocational training policy and employment in Nepal from the Korea National University of Education in South Korea. Also a Master in Public Administration from Tribhuvan and a Bachelor in Project Office Management from Tribhuvan University. And you have more than 32 years, actually, you told me, in the CTEVT. So I'd like to have your statement a little bit about policies have been formulated, and we have just heard that the university is trying to adapt to the need to formulate foreign policies by creating these masters. But what on your sense, which is maybe more on the ground of technical education, what is the need of the moment, and how do you as a body, an apex body, go about promoting technical education?
Thank you, sir.
I must also tell you that we normally should be staying at 5 minutes. It's very difficult for myself also, but let's try to keep it to 5 minutes.
Chair of the sessions, His Excellency Renewable Shepherds, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to somehow sharing my experience in the Tibet sector of Nepal. Wearing the hat of Vice Chairperson of CTVT, one of the leading organizations of technical vocational education and training, and as a professional of Tibet, I have to show the honesty in front of you. What is happening in Nepal under education system, especially in Tibet, for that, I'll try to give a little glance of CTVT and Tibet system of Nepal. Just nearby this conference hall, hotel, we can see our young people, they are in long road to get permission to go for foreign employment. And inside this hall, our entrepreneur and industry people asking workers, those who can run their industry and business. This is the scenario. The CTVT was created by a special act of the Parliament in 1989 with the mandate to formulate the Tibet policy, coordinating among Tibet providers, ensure quality standards by means of skill tests and certify the graduates. During the past 30 years of its history, Tibet system of Nepal has made a considerable progress. However, due to rapid growth of population, prolonged socio-political conflict, and subsequent stagnation of industrial economic growth, employable skill training and education opportunity have reached only a small segment of the population, that is 10 to 12% of 15 to 29 years. The momentum is now changing. Multiple donors and stakeholders have focused on Tibet program and service below bachelor level, with more than 429 private technical training providers, 29 community schools and 45 constitute campuses of CTVT, with one more our Tibet program are serving the nation. The Tibet program expanded in the areas of engineering, health, agriculture, forestry, tourism, food technology, and IT. Most of the technical areas and trades remain male-dominated except nursing program of health. All these have an intake capacity of about 50,000 youths and adults in TSLC and diploma program alone. A wide range of occupation-specific short-term courses, 1 to 12 months, are being offered for job seekers in Nepal and abroad. TMED activities largely remain in the form of trial and error, uncoordinated and scattered. The development intervention initiated by the government, the CTBT, as well as non-government agencies, characterize critical weakness at different phases of the training cycle. Without involving employers and other relevant stakeholders at all phases of the training cycle, analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation, training becomes more supply-driven and less market-oriented. Linkage between training and employment or self-employment can be promoted by means of designing and offering market or need-based courses for the most appropriate persons identified and included as a trainees. Most training intervention fail primarily due to what employers expect from the workers and what they are trained for, especially in informal sector. Employers in the informal economy pay workers for the actual work performed, not for being listed in the payroll, as is often the case in the government organizations. Identification and negotiation with appropriate training providers, that means institutions or the enterprises, that are able and willing to organize and deliver the needed skill training models for the targeted working youths and adults should.
I, being a graduate, I'm soon going to be a graduate, and all the other students, we believe that we have to be provided with opportunities for research and also for involvement in industries. There can be an internship, it can be any research opportunity, so that as soon as we graduate, we get a path which towards which we can get directed. What actually happens here is, whenever we are graduated, we are in search of a profession which is right for us. And in search of that profession, we kind of get deviated, and then we cannot continue further in that sector. So as being a part of energy sector now, being involved in the sector, I, along with all my students, we would like to continue in the sector and contribute in some ways, and we are very enthusiastic. So cannot there be an environment where industries come and approach the universities and can create an environment where students can directly get involved with the industry, whether instead of a student sitting in a computer in front of a laptop and searching for jobs and internship. I think it could be the other way around, so that it can be more effective and create a new way for creating and investing research-oriented students to a proper field of industry. I think that is my query. So how would you address that?
A very passionate problem solver. They have an aptitude to solve problems, and the society has number of them, right? But along the way, I also learned that aptitude really works well if they understand the space whereby the problems occurs. That space has what's called society, male and female, and also has culture, has value, economic strata, and so on. So this typical challenges that those two entrepreneurs brought here is classic one. And we have the largest engineering school at Arizona State, and then I think we are ranked top 4 or something like that in the nation. And it's our struggle to produce 21st century engineers. They are fit for the challenge of the 21st century. And the 21st century challenges are very, very classic and very complex. So we've tried to focus on a couple of things here. The one, they have to be engineer plus. That is, they have to come up with sort of entrepreneurial or leadership skills. They have to be also a social scientist as well, so that they understand and navigate the complexity of the society. And then finally, they have to be first and foremost a leader. This is a global challenge, and if anybody has figured out how to produce a 21st century engineer, we would like to learn from them, right?
Thank you.
How to evaluate projects conducted after after a time period of, let's say, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years, and what is actually the sustainability impact, environmentally, economically, and socially, and then for the region. I find this immensely difficult, and I'm very glad that you are here, probably to give me some indications how I can also meet you. We do this with post-occupancy analysis in architecture, but I would be very much interested how it's done in engineering. Thank you. It's a longer question now, but I would really, really appreciate some comments.
Thank you very much. Workshop on getting ideas about how industry and vocational training or training institutes, academic training can come together. As far as the evaluation of projects is concerned, this is a business which is done by the GIZ, for instance, who have a very intense evaluation process. I think if there is a need on that, I could put you in contact with them. It's not something which I think we can here answer. It's not.
But what to do with the benchmarking?
Yes, but benchmarking is something, I think that was very interesting. As you said, there is this Engineer Plus idea, also what you mentioned. You need to be more than just a problem-solving engineer in the technical field. You have to have more involvement in the working environment you're going to be in. And there's even the question of standardization, which is something which is important for people staying here. But I would like to simply echo the questions which you put forward, which are about this Engineer Plus idea, that what comes out of an academic institution needs to be exactly what can be worked immediately in the business environment. Now my question to the business leaders, and I mean, you can just choose who of you will respond, maybe just one of them. Is there a chance you see for industry to get involved earlier in the production of the engineer, in the production of the skilled labourer? Or is that too difficult in one sense? And the other sense would be for the academic institutions, the professional training institution, is there a way of integrating this earlier on so that when the engineer comes out, she doesn't have to go to the computer, she already knows where she's going to be employed. Maybe first business, yes, perhaps.
Go into that, or you want to change, or you want to do something else. But what I see here in Nepal is for the technical graduates, I don't know, I'm not sure whether they have this intensive courses mandatory in their curriculum. So that internship or the apprenticeship you're talking about in Germany, I think that will provide a good foundation for the future engineers, for the future technicians, where you can work in the industry, where you can feel it and decide your future later. At the same time, the industry also benefits, has some benefits in it, because when you hire those people as an internship or apprenticeship, you don't have to pay as higher in comparison with the regular workers. So in that way, the company will get a cheap people also. At the same time, they'll be trained, and when they need, and later on when the companies need people like them, they can just rehire them. So that saves a lot of time, and when they rehire them, the productivity from the day one will be, in a very good way. So that said, I think it's very important to have a link between the industry as well as the institutions, policies, and the internship course should be taken, and it should be focused really to move forward.
One sub-assembly industry to consumer electronic assembly industry to transformer. So if you put the universe together, there's just about 15, 20. So given that universe that is available, the demand is also limited, and probably the on-campus recruitment may take a little while. And regarding Mr. Chetri's question about Engineer Plus, I think the question is, I think that the need is not immediately there for a super engineer to be produced. But as you rightly said, people who can actually take initiatives, and because that's what engineers are supposed to do, you know, take the initiative or tread the path that has not been taken before. So to take the initiative, you know, one must be proactive, one must take initiatives, and of course leadership is I think a big criteria which makes or differentiates an engineer. So I think these are the basic qualities. And one of our panelists just said is that, I think Dr. Garg also just mentioned, is that we have actually become top heavy, because in the sense that we now have more engineers, and then the people to work under the engineers are actually less in numbers. So the academic must also focus on producing people who will actually work under the engineers, or in future maybe the engineers will have to do that work, so which becomes even more, you know, blessing.
Thank you very much. Now, internet is more expensive because you get engineers within the end are not engineers. You get skilled laborers, which are less expensive. So there is an economic aspect to it also. But turning to the academic institutions, first maybe to the university, could you imagine innovative forms of involvement during the training? At what time would there be the right moment for an internship in engineering, or how about the training of skilled laborers, which is the real gap which we identified, and to get it back?
There is a gap in skilled level manpower operation and mid-level, high-level, and is, so whereas is that there is a need of internship within the course of their study. So we are going to change our curricula into adding internship, 6 months internship in the courses. So now the industry, they have to take responsibility, accept our students as an intern. As I said before, our enrollment capacity is 4,176 in a year. So that those numbers has to be managed by the industry, requesting industries, stakeholders to accept in each year somewhere. So that is also management part is very difficult, but we realize that there is a much gap between the industrial needs and the academic, what we are offering.
Thank you very much, and I'm very heartened actually by an exchange of economic and financial arguments. This is sometimes the starting point for real discussions happening actually. You say it's more expensive. Thank you, Mr. Basmi. Your reaction.
Of the education system, we always focus to the government. Only the government was the employers.
When I looked at the article published in The Rising Nepal by Dr. Retrud, he mentioned that there is a labor market for 5 lakhs per annum. Just mentioning one small example of installation of 1 kilowatt of photovoltaic on the rooftop, only considering the Kathmandu Valley. There are estimated, maybe 600,000 households on houses or rooftops are available for at least 1 kilowatt of photovoltaic panel. Considering that 1 kilowatt, it turns out to be 600 megawatt of solar energy for 6 hours a day. Considering that, one skilled person takes 1,500 rupees per day, and 2 skilled persons are needed to install 1 kilowatt of photovoltaic, taking 2 days. That turns about 1,200,000 Nepalese skilled person needed only for installation of 600 megawatt of this photovoltaic. And I'm not comparing with hydropower, which is half less than a photovoltaic probably, but that is something which Nepal government does not need any investment from itself. It will be distributed, and every people, if that is given chances to grid connected or even not grid connected, just making aware that 1 kilowatt photovoltaic can save their enormous energy import from outside. My house can save 4 or 5 cylinders per month for cooking by utilizing solar energy, because I have installed that 1 kilo. Now, enormous number of people, skilled persons are needed. So taking the question of industry, why industries are not getting proper people, because university does not have that focused practice-based or problem-based learning. Kathmandu University has done this one because every semester they have to do engineering project, even up to 8th semester. So, and also internship, we have 2 months internship, we have to send students to different organizations and industries to work on. But the thing is, when the internship should be given, I'm considering that it would be better to have in 4 years course. The 6th semester would be better time to give internship, as in India also they have this 6th semester student go for at least 1 month or 2 months to industry and learn something, and then when they come back, they will already know in which direction they have to go. And that is when I asked another question to my students. They said, when I said, what if I provide 50% theory and 50% project-based learning in our university, they said that would be fantastic. So taking that into consideration, I would suggest to have, myself, I'm educated at the school vocational level, and then I went to overseas studying this proficiency test in electrical engineering, and then I became a civil engineer, and I specialize in hydropower, and I find myself very much down to earth, nail down and working and dirtying my hand with the machines and electrical appliances, and also the cement and others. I don't think that engineers who have this project-based learning and problem-based learning would not mind to go down and work as a laborer, as a skilled laborer, than just sitting as having a tie and in the seat. So it is also a social matter. Parents would also love to see their children would have engineer in the front as the title, as well as very skilled, so that they can make out of their knowledge very innovative way, something innovation, and producing as very tangible products for the society. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It remains only to say thank you to the audience, thank you to the panel. I'd like to mention also Dr. Sanjaya Upriti, our rapporteur, who listens and who will make something out of it. Thank you for joining us. Maybe just one word picking up on the evaluation of projects. Maybe we need an evaluation next year to see where we stand on that school of Mr. Dakar, on the training schemes of the CBT, and the internships, where you say, what did the industry actually offer the internship you have? And maybe on your side also to see where the relationship stands. Thank you very much, and have a great conference for the rest of the day.
The rapporteur and the audience for the wonderful session. Let us proceed towards the distribution of token of love. I would now like to request our session moderator, His Excellency Roland Scheffer, to present the panelists with the token of love. I would like to begin with Professor Dr. Triratna Bhattacharya, sir. Would you please come up on the stage to receive your token of love? I would like to request Professor Ramesh Kumar Baske to please come ahead and receive his token of love. I would like to request Dr. Gul Bahadur Basne to come forward and receive his token of love. Now I would like to request Mr. Prabhakar Shamsher Thapa to please come forward and receive his token of love. request Mr. Rajiv Mangal Joshi, could you please come forward and receive your token of love? I would now like to request Professor Dr. Triratna Bhattacharya, Dean of Institute of Engineering, to come forward and deliver the token of love to the moderator of this plenary session, His Excellency Ronald Shepherd. Thank you all for the wonderful session. Our plenary session has come to an end, and we
Just I would like to give some background so that our presenters can focus. Although I do understand that trying to see with the different presentations is pretty tough. But for making our presentations effective, probably if our presenters can slightly change their presentation so that the issue I'm trying to put forward are addressed. Basically, in the context of federalism, there are a lot of confusion in multiple sectors. Whether the constitution is actually correct, is it implementable or not, and also there is lack of clarity in terms of mandates given to various levels of government, federal, provincial and local level, because there are a list of concurrent functions of government, which is making things a little bit confusing because people can interpret it in the way they like. Because of this context, I would like to ask our presenters to basically, in addition to what they are trying to dwell with two things, namely whether current arrangements of the constitution and articulations of various legal instruments make functioning of renewable energy sector confusing. If there is confusion, what would be the way forward in terms of streamlining those confusions? Because federal structure is meant to make our delivery more efficient. It should not add to confusion. With any changes, perhaps there can be some confusion, but the period of confusion should be minimized, and people should not be asking us why on earth you impose on us federalism or anything else, making our life more complicated than it was. So with this little bit of remarks, I would like to ask our distinguished panelists to initiate their presentation. I would like to request to start with Mr. Balananda Paudel, former Secretary of Government of Nepal. It would have been good to give a little bit of introduction because I do not have materials with me, although I know about you everything, but I am not going to say that because I am not familiar in a similar fashion with all people. So with 2-3 sentences of introduction so that people know who they are listening to would be a good idea. Mr. Paudel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm Balananda Paudel, retired secretary, and I had the opportunity to work in the Ministry of Energy. And very recently, I had the honor of chairing local level restructuring commission, and now I'm working as a freelancer. I don't have any formal responsibility. That's all about my introduction. I'm from outside the Kathmandu Valley, Porval. My presentation would be about the federal system in Nepal a little bit, 2 or 3 minutes. How much time? 10 minutes, okay. So you'll remind me before the completion of my, yeah. I'll be discussing about the federal setup actually in the first part, and in the second part, what is the arrangement regarding the renewable energy, and I will talk about that. I'll discuss about federal system. Actually, we transformed from unitary system to federal system. What does it mean for the federal system? I had the honor of chairing this commission, local level restructuring commission, which we defined 753 local governments boundary. Within these 753 local governments, there are 7 provinces.
the boundary, the geography and the population is the same. But after this local government's boundary, there are 7 provincial boundaries, seven provinces, and there is one federation. So this is what about our structure. So how I draw this picture from the constitutional perspective. So I will little bit explain about that. There is an overlap, of geography and population. So we need to think that the geography is the same, the population is the same, but there are different levels of the government. There are 3 levels of the government. In the first level, it's local level, there are 753. At the provincial level, there are 7, and at the federal level, there is 1 Nepal government. So, how I draw it from Constitution, I will explain a little bit later on. But before that, I have to ask that if the geography and the population is the same, what is the relationship between these 3 levels of the government, and what is their duty, and how we'll know that? How the Constitution defines that? I think we need to be clear about the role and responsibility and the relationship. Regarding the relationship, 3 principles are given by the Constitution. The one is cooperation. On the basis of the principle of cooperation, their relationship will be defined, and the principle of coordination. On the basis of principle of coordination, the relationship between these 3 levels of the government will be defined, and the coexistence. What does it mean in the practical terms? I think we have to define in the days to come from our practice, real practice. So this is the challenge ahead. So how I draw this picture, I'll little bit explain. There is a provision in the Constitution, the main structure of the country shall be of 3 levels. I clearly take it from the Constitution, that is the 56, one is the article of Constitution, the federation, state and local. I used to say province rather than state, but the translation in the Constitution is written as state. That's why I mentioned here state. But I'm comfortable with the province, because the definition of a state is a little bit confusing even in the Constitution. But the translation is, there is a state. And these 3 levels of the government, this state structure will enjoy the state power, federation, state and local. All these 3 levels will enjoy the state power. This is from the Constitution. So what does, what do you mean by state power? The Constitution clearly defines that state power means the power relating to executive, legislative and judiciary, and it includes the residual powers too. The residual powers lies in the federation. So all these 3 levels of the government will enjoy the state power, that means executive, legislative as well as judiciary. So how the state power is distributed? All these 3 levels of government will enjoy the authority given by the Constitution, which is written in the schedule. The schedule is very much important to go through, to know about the federal system of Nepal. So the federation will enjoy the power mentioned in the Schedule 5, 6 and 9, state Schedule 6, 7 and 9, local Schedule 8 and 9. Schedule 9 is concurrent down to the local level, and Schedule 7 is concurrent down to the province level. So the concurrency is very high, so that will create, Joshiji already mentioned that, whether it created the confusion or clarity. I think we need to go through all these details of constitutions. If you have gone through the vertical decentralization of the power according to our constitution, I think the federation, the legislative of federation is federal parliament, government of Nepal, and there is a court system. Why I chose this slide here is that the judicial system is the unitary system based. We need to know that the judicial system is unitary based, but legislative and executives are federal based. So what happened to renewable energy? What happened to alternative energy? So if you have gone through the Schedule 5, these functions are related to renewable energy. That's why I picked up these functions from Schedule 5. I will not go in detail. And these are from Schedule 6. This is the exclusive list of province. So we can go through this. And these are from the Schedule 7. the management of profession, the management of engineering profession. It lies in the schedule 7. So this is the concurrent function of province as well as federation. So how the role will be defined, what is the function of province and what is the function of federation. So we need to know that, whether there is clarity or not. I think we need to be clear on that. So environment protection and all these things are in Schedule 7. And this is from Schedule 8, which lies under the purview of local government, alternative energy. This terminology is used in the schedule. So we are talking about renewable energy. I will come to that point later on. And if you have gone through the Schedule 9, the environment, ecology, and electricity, these things are mentioned. If you have gone through the Local Government Operation Act, there is also the alternative energy is mentioned there. Regarding the alternative energy, the policy, regulation, implementation, all these things will be done by local governments, which is written in the Local Government Operation Act 2074. Sorry, it is not 75, it is 74. Sorry. So, my submission to this floor is that whether we are clear about alternative energy and renewable energy or not. If not, we need to be clear on that. Otherwise, we will not follow the spirit of the Constitution. So clarity in definition is necessary. I draw some, literature from website and other literature. If you had gone to the 18th century, the fossil fuel was the alternative to oil. Even this, fossil fuel was treated as alternative energy. But right now, this is not the alternative energy. The alternative to fossil fuel would be the hydropower, solar, geothermal. So, if this definition is okay for us or not, I think we need to debate on this, and we have to have common understanding about the alternative energy and renewable energy. Is it alternative energy is renewable energy for us, or it is different than renewable energy? So the consensus is different. I think this forum can declare that this renewable energy is alternative energy. I'll not go in detail. So there is a provision of joint service arrangement because there are many, several units of governance at the provincial level, at the local level. So from the economic point of view, from the scale of economic point of view, I think we will need in some area joint service arrangement. So actually, what is the modality of So for cost minimization, optimal use of resources, effective service delivery, we may need the joint service arrangement. So we need to discuss on that, the joint service arrangement between and among provincial governments, local province federation, federation local. So there's many kinds of arrangement we may need. So what sort of framework, what sort of mechanism will follow in terms of the joint service arrangement? I think these topics need to be discussed. The role of federal level institution like ABC, Takaji, he's from ABC, I think he will discuss on that. From my perspective, the ABC would be as an intermediary role, as a technical package stopper, troubleshooter, facilitator, mentor, coordinator, rather than direct implementer and the plan. The harmonization of planning and setting a common destination would be the major challenge in the days to come. So we need to be clear on that, actually how we are going to set our destination and harmonize our planning process. If it happens, what will be there regarding this alternative energy too? So I cross this, we not like this, all these things, yeah. This should be the way. So how to synchronize, how to, harmonize the whole planning process at the federation, at the province, as well as at the local level. Deputy will speak more on this. Yes, of course, the roles, clarity and roles and responsibility of different level of the governments and different units will be a major challenge because concurrency is very high. So regarding this interpretation of function, while working in the local level restructuring commission, we set some principles. I'll be very brief, 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. There is a confusion between exclusive function and concurrent function. Because regarding the concurrent function, if you have gone through the third bullet, in the concurrent function, the federation prevails over province and province prevails over local. If there is contradiction, between federation and province, the federal law will prevail. That's why federation prevails in the concurrent function. From that perspective, every function is concurrent. Because everything is written in the Schedule 9, the whole sector is written in Schedule 9. If it is so, through the concurrent function, federation can intervene, in every function of province as well as local. So we propose this principle even in our report that exclusive function prevails over concurrent function. If it is written in the exclusive list of any level of the government, that is exclusive for them. From the perspective of concurrent function, no level of the government can intervene into that function. That principle need to be followed. We suggested that, so we can discuss and we can suggest actually what sort of principle we have to follow while interpreting the role of the different level of the governments. So if the same functions are in the exclusive list, for example, peace and security is written in the Schedule 5 and written in the Schedule 6. The Province 2 and Federation's struggle is going on. So both function is written in the exclusive list. So what is the interpretation? What sort of principle we are going to apply to define the role of different level of the government? So we suggested that in that case, in case of the functions are in the exclusive list in 2 or more levels of the government, the principle of subsidiarity will prevail. So that will be the rule of game. That is what we suggested. And in case of concurrent function, this should be the principle. We suggested that. I think this is for the discussion. We can agree or disagree on it. Federation, national level standard, national level regulatory framework, national level policy, benchmarking, national plan, whatever. If it is national, definitely it lies under the purview of federation. If it is the case of frontline delivery function, it is the local government would be the best one because they are very close to the people. For support function, for practice stopping, back office function, middle office function, I think the province would be the better one. I think we can follow this principle. We suggested that, and we can discuss on it. And this is my last slide. And no blame game. The federal system is not blame game system. For example, you can see that the federation and province struggle. Similarly, province and local, federation and local. So this kind of blame game we can't allow and we can't tolerate. So this is the system. Federal system is not the provision for one level of government to avoid their responsibility by blaming the other. They have to take their own responsibility defined by the Constitution. That's all my presentation. Thank you.
We develop it problem. So these August gatherings should try to probably, based on the presentation from Mr. Powell, try to carve out issues that the sector is facing. With this little bit of input, I would like to request Mr. Navraj Dhakal for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Respected Chair, respected panelists, and distinguished delegates. First of all, thanks for this nice opportunity to share the panel with this very distinguished and eminent personalities. Actually, I don't have any PowerPoint presentation, but the presentation that Balaman sir has just made has covered everything, I would say. I just would take the privilege to elaborate on some of the points. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Navraj Dhakal. I work with Alternative Energy Promotion Center AEPC as the Acting Executive Director. Actually, I have been with AEPC for more than 15 years already. and this editing role I have recently taken. Talking about the renewable energy institutions and governance in the federal context, the presentation has rightly laid out the floor. As Balanand sir was mentioning, I just want to pick up from one of his slides. He was mentioning in one of the slides that the local government should be local government being closest to the people, closest to the ones who need to be served. It's a front line. The provincial government as a back office, and the national or federal government as a kind of national level regulator or national level policy maker or national level standard maker. I think that is one of the good elaboration, and based on the power given by the constitution in the alternative energy or in the renewable energy, the debate, the definition, confusion that remains, that we can recommend from this session that we have very eminent and very distinguished participants in the floor also, so we can recommend something in here. I do not want to sort of propose anything from my side. I just want to hear from your side on that conclusion. But regarding the roles, of course, local governments, they have the full authority, they have the full power for the alternative energy, and within that also it has been elaborated as micro or mini hydro or small hydro up to 1 megawatt, and for other renewables like solar or wind or biomass or biofuels, other renewables, there is no any capacity limit for the local governments within their jurisdiction. So that is one reality. Alternative energy is the word that has been used in the Schedule 8 of the Constitution, and in the Local Government Operation Act, it has been elaborated that way. And that's a reality, and our role basically for the federal government is to help and support the local governments to execute that power, to execute that role. Second thing that I would like to share here is since the local governments, they have now, they are set up as a sort of autonomous and independent governments. Of course, the three principles that Balanand sir has also presented are there: coordination, collaboration, and coexistence. So that is there. So based on that principle, local, provincial, and the federal government, they don't have any kind of reporting relations. They only have the working relation. So that's why AEPC, being the federal level agency, we are now in the process to set up a working relation with the provincial and the local government. And it has been very clearly laid out by the government's documents. One is the Local Government Operation Act, but this organization and management survey for the different levels of the government, that is also approved by the federal government, and very clearly set out that at the province level there is a provincial infrastructure development ministry. Within that ministry there is an energy division. So this is where we need to establish our working relation. At the local level, within each local government, be it a rural municipality or it's a municipality, up to the metro and the sub-metro, there is an infrastructure development division. But for the municipality and rural municipality, there is a physical infrastructure section. So this is where we need to establish a working relation. Of course, local government or provincial government, we treat them as a stand-alone autonomous government. But we have the entry point there to work with them. So this is the second clarity that we have got. Third thing is from the federal level, AEPC is 22 years old, so we have 22 years of experience working in this sector. And we have been working not in isolation. AEPC has been working in a partnership, in collaboration with the many partners and stakeholders, including development partners, other government organizations, civil society organizations, and most importantly, the private sector. So this sort of working modality, working mechanism we need to induce at the province level and the local level. So to induce that working modality, we have recently started formulating a model working procedure for the federal level, province level and for the local level separately. This will be a kind of model working modality that we develop from the federal level, and we hand it over to provincial and the local governments. And since they are independent governments, they will utilize their own authority. They can make any kind of required changes, and they approve it and they put that into implementation. This kind of practice has already been done in case of other sectors which are within their jurisdiction, be it exclusive or be it concurrent. So this is the way that we have started. And of course, I mean, if we see from the reality or the practical point of view, it might take few years for the local governments and the provincial government to completely take over that role. So in that respect, it would have been a good that if we have some transition plan with some sort of action plan with certain timeline, say 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. But we don't have that kind of transition plan. Since once the new constitution was promulgated, the governance system changed abruptly, and as per the new constitution, required acts or required regulations are gradually being formed, and the new governance system is gradually sort of taking its foothold and moving forward. So in this context, basically AEPC's role in the federal system is, like it was also mentioned in Balanand sir's slide, we basically act as a capacity builder or mentor for the local governments, because local governments have the exclusive power on the alternative energy. So we utilize our experience, we utilize our knowledge, we bring in international knowledge, the skill, we sort of help in technology and knowledge transfer, we help in mobilizing the international resources. So basically through those means, we collaborate with the local governments, and we help them execute the power given to them by the Constitution and by the Local Government Operation Act. So this is how we are looking ahead, and this is how we have initiated to act in the renewable energy sector. If I may sort of put forward some of the things that have recently happened. For example, in the current year's budget that federal government announced, there is a dedicated budget head for the alternative energy for the provinces and the local governments. This is a conditional grant for the provincial and the local governments. So conditional grant meaning that the provincial or the local government for which this budget has been allocated, they can spend that money for that particular subsector only. But based on their own needs, they can make internal priorities. For example, within alternative energy also, if I may take example of one Tarai local government and one hill or mountain local government, priorities might be different based on the resource availability locally, based on their need, based on the best available technology which is available there, based on what can be done, based on the economic parameters that they can employ. So the technical feasibility, financial feasibility, and the local needs and local resource availability. So they can take into account all those things, and they can make internal priority, but ultimately whatever budget has been allocated as a conditional grant to that particular subject, alternative energy, they need to spend. And based on the additional resources available with them and based on the priority they have made, they can put additional resources up to their need, up to their capacity. So this is how the governance system has started to move on. But definitely we would have a lot of things to learn from other countries, international experiences, and our own experiences also. Since Bill has written twice already, so I stuck here, but I hope I'll get additional time later to elaborate few more points. Thank you.
All the distinguished personalities attending the event. Firstly, let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Kalani Dekota, Executive Director, Municipal Association of Nepal, that represents the entire cities and towns of the country. And because taking into account the limitation of the time, my decision was also good that I didn't bring my PowerPoint presentation, and perhaps I'm also the weirdest and laziest, one of the laziest panelists also, did not like to make a presentation. I have few things to make in this very important gathering. That first of all, like Mr. Palanand Borrell rightly mentioned, that we have embarked on the new federal structure in the country, that the country has introduced the new system of the governance, and which has given equal importance and responsibilities to all 3 tiers of government. And needless to say, I represent the 3rd tier of government. I'm a kind of pro-local government guy also, wherever I go. And more specifically, I'm a urban guy. So I much more, my focus will be on the cities and towns. Because of my orientation of the education, as well as due to my job and where I'm working. I would like to start from what's the role of cities, particularly for the renewable energy. Because if we in terms of the global scenario, the energy, the cities play the crucial role for the carbon economy. Almost 65%, cities are responsible for the 65% of the carbon economy, if we talk about the energy sector. And 70% of carbon emission is created due to the, human activities. That is very crucial. And when I started my job with the Municipal Association of Nepal, my first assignment was to coordinate a project to create a kind of inventory of 3 cities about the GHG emission. And I don't know whether any other institution or organization has worked in that sector so far. I haven't seen any research or any kind of inventory of such kinds. For example, Lalitpur, Kathmandu and Pokhara metropolitan city now, the then sub-metropolitan city, we had created 3 kind of carbon inventory, carbon emission inventory of those 3 cities, and I approached to the Ministry of Environment then to show them that this is the real result, and almost 80% of the emission was used to be from the transportation system only, urban transportation, and only 5 to 8% emission from the waste management. So our efforts should have been for the mass transportation management, particularly for the big cities. And that result I shared in many different parts of the world, even in the energy convention that took place in 2012 in Manila, ADB headquarters, and Ecuador, Quito during the this Habitat, World Habitat Day. And more or less in other developing countries also the scenario we found similar. So our efforts should be kind of,